Future title challenger Kai France will be watching this fight with bated breath because two of his former common opponents, Brandon Royval Raw Dog, is going to be taking on Rogerio Bontorin out of Brazil. Now, for Rogerio, his last time out was at 135, but it wasn't because he weighed 137. He took on Matt Schnell, and I thought it was going to be an interesting fight. I think you're going to see some parallels in this fight with Brandon Royval when you compare him to Matt Schnell. And for Bontorin, the weight miss was worrisome. But he won that fight, and he looked pretty good in that one, like he has at 125. And the weirdest thing about Bontorin, and I know I've touched on this in previous videos, because he has been in the UFC for some time. He gets his shot over on Dana White's Contender Series in 2018, wins that fight, and then fights fellow 14-1 fighter, Magomed Bibulatov, where he's a giant underdog. Like, you know, plus 255, I'd say that's a pretty big underdog. Wins that one by split decision. That's one of those fun fights that you want to go back and see. A good one? It's that one. Very underrated. Then he beats Raulian Paiva, where there's a great shot. Raulian's eyebrow explodes, and he gets the win. And then if you look at it, Bontorin fights Ray Borg, loses the decision, fights Kai France back and forth, almost finishes Kai, then he gets finished himself, and then he has the Schnell fight. So for Bontorin, he goes through the adversity of losing 2 fights in the UFC. For Brandon Royval, that adversity's now. He's lost 2 in a row, loses against Brandon Moreno in a title eliminator, loses to Alessandro Pantoja's last time out. The crazy thing for me is, in my mind's eye, before doing any of the research, I thought, geez, Brandon Royval, well, he's coming back off that shoulder surgery finally. Totally forgot about the Pantoja fight. That fight did not go well.
It really didn't, and it was one of those weird fights where he's coming off of an injury, he had surgery, so how much were you really in the gym before that? But he didn't look great against Pantoja his first fight back. Now, a lot of guys don't look great against Pantoja in their first fight back, or first fight in the UFC. A lot of people have struggled against Pantoja on the feet and on the mat, so I don't know if we can put a ton of stock in that fight, and I'll say it for this reason. I think Pantoja and Bontorin are very different fighters, although they do have similarities, because I thought I was going to get a classic Craig weird face there, because they both have great submission skills, they both have power on the feet, but they're very different in the way that they display those things, because Pantoja can set up his strikes in the feet far better than Bontorin can, and he's a much more physically strong fighter than Bontorin is. Now, I can be honest, I was with Bontorin after his Kai France fight, where BlackBerry is like today with their company. I had sold I sold all my stock in it. I thought it was gone forever, and I never thought we were going to see the best version of it, because I thought, okay, Bontorin, you're a good grappler, but we kind of know what it is. You've got that one big burst, and then if you can get past that burst, you can beat him. But what he did to Matt Schnell, I know he missed weight up a division, was very impressive to me, because Matt Schnell is such a well-rounded fighter. He's got great submissions. Yes, he doesn't have the best chin in the world, but still.
That's it. That's the knock.
Exactly. He is an extremely, extremely talented mixed martial artist. And for Bontorin to go out there, overwhelm him on the feet, mix in his grappling, it was so impressive, and it was one of those performances that made me completely rethink the way that I thought his career might play out, because... And this is where I'll hand it off to you. At 136.7, or whatever he weighed in at, he did look very good. Do you think we will get at least a similar fighter to what we saw at bantamweight? Or do you think he will fall back into some of those problems he showed at featherweight? Will he kind of be a step behind? Or not featherweight, sorry, down at flyweight.
We've never seen Bontorin miss weight at 125. That's what makes it so weird at 135. It was short notice. It was this, it was that, so on and so forth. So I won't focus on those particulars too much because of the nature of the last fight. But at 125, it hasn't been the biggest issue. Now, is this a guy that cuts a lot of weight? Yeah, I mean, look at him. Yeah, at 125, 100% it is. And for Brandon Royval, the opposite can be said. Why aren't you fighting at bantamweight? He's so long, he's so tall, he's so lanky. Like, it is a weird one for him. And if you look at it for Brandon Royval, okay, so he loses to Moreno. He was having fun until...
He was doing well in some of those grappling exchanges.
Same thing in the Kai France fight. That was a great fight. They were having some fun. Each guy was having success. He had a great debut against Tim Elliott where he gets, what was it, a fight of the night against him? Great Finishes fight. Him in the second round. It's a lot of good stuff. The losses outside of the UFC. Casey Kenny. That's fair. Nick Urso. Good, good test. Ricky Palacios, he was pretty good. Won on Contender Series. Thought he'd end up in the UFC, but he didn't. So coming into this fight, Brandon Royval, what's he good at? Sweeping guys, finishing them on the mat, having a lot of fun with the stand-up, but is his striking his bread and butter? Not so much, but he's trying to fix those holes. He's made the switch over to Factory X, and it's been some time now, so he's definitely working those things out. I think training with a bigger guy like an Alexander Hernandez would be great for this matchup. Rogerio Bontorin is sneaky. So When I look at the odds for this one, Royval opened, I guess I should say they both opened at par. Royval minus 167. If you look at it for Bontorin, somewhere around a plus 139. If I set the over-under at 67.5% for Royval, would you say over or under?
I'll say over.
Topology votes, 1,398 total votes, 84% Royval, 54% have him to win by submission. For the 16% that have Bontorin, 58% have him to win by decision. So Matt, the odds in Royval's favor right now, and the voters all just about have Royval in this fight. So what can you say on this one?
So, you remember the game Baggage? It was that dating show? Of course you remember it.
John Boy got in some hot water on that
So,
one.
Brandon Royval, we've talked a lot about his positives, but there's that one big baggage that he's yet to open. And it's, yeah, my offensive grappling is really good, but my defensive grappling is suspect.
But Matt, what about that?
Exactly. That is a very big red flag for me because Royval is so good, like you said. He's so flashy and everything he does is so unorthodox. And when I look at Brandon Royval, that line from Skyfall comes into my mind. It's security through obscurity because nothing he does is normal. It all is so obscure and so unique that that's where he does find a lot of his success in the cage. I think Bontorin could bread and butter his way to a win. And I know that's a weird way of saying it, but with Bontorin, he's kind of a more compact version of Brandon Royval. He's a better wrestler. I think he is the more physically strong guy. And this is where the fight is probably going to be dictated. If Bontorin is on top of Royval, I think he's going to be able to keep that position, do as much as he wants with that position as he can. If Royval's on top of Bontorin, I think he might struggle holding that position. Now, he's got great top pressure. He does have really good submissions, but where Royval exceeds is in those in-betweens. It's in the scrambles where, okay, we're both sort of half thinking about what we're going to do. That's when Royval knows, okay, I'm going for a neck. I think if Bontorin can keep higher hips, he should win this fight. I know that's a weird thing to say. But if it's on the feet, I do like Royval. I know he is really weird and wonky, but against someone like Bontorin, I do think that wonkiness is going to be a huge benefit. Now, against Pantoja, that doesn't work because someone who is so technical like Pantoja can get your reads down. They can play a much more steady game on the feet and just be defensively sound, where I think Bontorin's going to be more hittable on the feet. So I think this fight, oddly enough, is going to look similar to the Kai France one for both guys. It's going to be crazy. I think the pick is going to be Rogerio Bontorin, though, against my better judgment. Now, I will say this. If he does miss weight on Friday, I will switch my pick to Brandon Royval because I am that down the middle on this. But I think if we see the same fighter who went out there and fought Matt Schnell, who was able to fight on the inside in an intelligent manner to where I'm not too close to where every time we're getting close, we're clinching up, but I'm not so far away that I can't hit you with my strikes, I actually think this is a very winnable fight for Rogerio Bontorin.
Bontorin's beating a good striker in Raulian Paiva. Forget about the garbage of the Sean O'Malley fight, 135 and all that crap. But in that fight, Bontorin was able to win out in the striking. He's lost out in certain grappling exchanges, but he looked great in his last fight against Matt Schnell. Brandon Royval has not the best takedown defense, but he can work his submissions off his back and flip and, in a positional exchange, I guess is what I'm looking for. He is a way better striker than Rogerio Bontorin, who's been a negative striker in the UFC, and you see it in his fights. He can get behind
fast. He has big power because he does put a lot behind his shots, but you are right. There is a drawback to that, and it's a sloppiness.
And so for that, I like Royval. I think this is going to be one of those fights that it gets into the second round, it gets into the third round. We are turning it into second gear, and he's going to pull way out ahead of Rogerio Bontorin. I like both of these guys' games, and I think it's going to be one of those fights where it's either all in or all out for either of them. But for me, I've got Brandon Royval in this one. You've got Rogerio Bontorin. This is our second pick for fight of the night. This is such a good fight. This and Joanderson Brito against Bill Algeo. If you're going to catch any fights that aren't the main event, set the PVR, tell your friends that Craig and Matt said Brandon Royval, Rogerio Bontorin's the fight, and they're going to go, who, what? What do they do? What are those guys? Are they on, like, the Living Channel? Like, what do they do?
They gotta score touchdowns? No.
No. We're here for MMA. We're here to have a good time. So let us know down below in the comments section who you have. A couple of big fights left on this card. And if anything is added or subtracted, subscribe because we will have the updates as they happen. Listen, you're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say.
Let's get into it.